Hello and welcome to a live edition of Bulls on Parade Talk, providing you with Houston Texans coverage 365 days a year as always. I'm your host, Joshua Sines. And it's been a while since I've been on here posting live videos on here, hasn't it? Well, my sincerest apologies for all that. You know, ever since the draft, it hasn't been, ever since OTAs, since my OTAs coverage on my website, on my podcast and website, there hasn't really been much to discuss until, you know, training camp arrived, which I've been following closely, as well as preseason, which of course is what this is all about. The preseason is just a day away. Where did time go? Well, I'll tell you one thing. I am stoked. I am excited. I cannot wait. And all the talk, you know, and I remain quiet about everything that went on this offseason, particularly with Andre Johnson. And there's a reason for that. You know, I never felt that Andre would ever leave Houston. I stand by it. And no matter what happens, I still believe it. Now, if anything else happens that suggests otherwise, then I'll come out here and say, you know what? I was wrong. But you know what? The whole thing with Andre Johnson holding out, the media was making such a huge deal about it, I didn't even open my mouth. Wasn't worth it. Was not worth talking about somebody that wasn't there. And quite honestly, I would much rather put focus on the players that are in camp, that are in the facility, choosing to go to work. But again, Andre and you know, when I saw all these opinions on Twitter, you know, the radio, media, and all this stuff saying all the stuff about Andre, whether it was negative or positive, supporting him or not, I decided to stay quiet throughout the whole thing. I just decided to stay quiet because as I said, it wasn't worth my time. It was not worth my time to even go on here or on my podcast or on my website or even Twitter. I kept my mouth shut about Andre Johnson. Why? Because I know Andre is a quiet guy and he's not going to say anything much. He's going to let his actions speak for himself. Now, did I get somewhat of a negative vibe from this whole thing? Yeah, I did. But I wasn't worried. I didn't freak out. I didn't start. I never went on the air or off the air and said anything negative about Andre Johnson. Never did. Never will. I respect the hell out of him, whether the Texans deliver him a Super Bowl or not. I respect the hell out of him. Just as much as I respect the Houston Texans organization. And speaking of the Houston Texans organization, shout out to owner Bob McNair for beating cancer. It's great to have you back in the office, sir. And looking forward to seeing you out there on Sundays, supporting the team. And I know at some point we will get back to winning status, especially with this new coaching staff, which is something I'm very excited about. And with all the players around, assuming that they stay around, that once we take some time to develop them, they stay around, particularly J.J. Watt. And you know, just before I went on the air, I checked out my Twitter feed and I found that Bob McNair decided to go out and give an explanation as to why they didn't draft Johnny Manziel, which I thought was fantastic, which I thought was basically duh. And the other one was J.J. Watt's contract, J.J. Watt's upcoming contract. And basically, Johnny didn't fit the system. Duh. Of course he didn't fit. He's not a pocket passer. He's not. I never thought he would be a first-round pick. That's me. But I don't want to get into the draft. I did my draft coverage ever since ever since the off season. And y'all can go check out all those podcast episodes and my YouTube videos that I did on the draft. Go ahead. It's all there for you guys to check it out on my channel and website. And now that the season's back, the website is going to be a lot busier. And, of course, my podcast and YouTube channel, which I've already started scheduling episodes. So, schedule's on there. Anyway, J.J. Watt. Going back to J.J. Watt. Bob McNair is not going to be hesitant to tag him if we can't get a deal. Now, what does that mean for Jay? I don't know. I don't know if J.J. Watt's going to be offended by it or not. I don't see why. To me, it's just basically saying, hey, we're just tagging you right now for the moment while we get a deal done that works within what we have, money-wise. And you got to consider the cap. We never had a ton of cap room to begin with. That's why we had to get rid of players. And that's the whole reason, and that's the other reason why when some people were suggesting to trade or release Andre Johnson, I thought to myself, why? With what money? There's no money. We can't handle that. We can't end up eating the money that Andre Johnson was promised. We can't eat that. The Texans can't afford to let him go. Literally. Money-wise, we couldn't afford it. But anyway, I digress. The Texans are not afraid to franchise tag J.J. Watt if necessary. And if it happens, fine. To me, it basically says J.J. is going to stay here. That's all that really matters, in my opinion. Now, what he gets paid, I hope his people and the Texans can work out a deal where he can be one of the highest paid defensive players in the league. He deserves that kind of money. You've seen him on the field. He deserves that kind of money. But he needs to produce. We can say all we want about J.J. Watt and how great of a guy he is, how talented he is, and all the great things he's done for the city on and off the field. But the bottom line is every year he's got to produce and get better. He's got to produce and get better, and he has to stay disciplined football-wise, because as I watch J.J. on tape, he does have a tendency to go against assignments, against gap assignments, against rush assignments. And in some ways he can get away with it. And it's something that I noticed too as I've been doing a lot more studying on football. Defensive players, when they miss assignments, they can sometimes get away with it. It's not always the end of the world. Now, unless it's like a blown coverage in the secondary or something like that. But aside from that, defensive, particularly the front four or front three, or however many are on the line of scrimmage, or however many are rushing, they can sometimes get away with missed rush assignments because of their athleticism. Because their athleticism does sometimes overweigh the gap. Does sometimes overweigh assignments. Because hey, if you're athletic enough to get around one guy, or if you're strong enough to just push him back, that's pretty damn good. I think the defensive coaches are gonna excuse that. But for an offensive guy, you miss a block, quarterback sack. You miss a route, you miss a hot, it's either gonna be incomplete or intercepted. You miss a wide open receiver, quarterback. It's the quarterback didn't make the right throw. All that kind of. I'm just saying the mistakes, the assignments are more critical, I guess, offensively than defensively, due to the difference of attention that they get. Now, Is everyone perfect? Of course not. No one is. I'm just saying, and is J.J. Watt perfect and all that? Is he? Should that be used as a reason for him not to follow cap assignments? No, of course not. He's a football guy. He's going to be expected to work within the system, which is what I definitely expect, especially Romeo Crennel. Especially Romeo Crennel's defensive system. He'll figure it out, and so will the Texans. J.J. Watt deserves the money, and if it takes longer to give it to him, fine. Just so long as he stays in Houston. That's all I care about. That's all I really care about. Because we let Mario Williams go because he wanted a big deal and the Texans couldn't give it to him. And he went to Buffalo. I do not want the same fate for J.J. Watt. We will get this figured out. I do not see J.J. Watt leaving Houston. I do not see J.J. Watt leaving Houston at all. Now, obviously I need to, what I'm going to do after this recording is I'll check the cap for the next couple of years, because we got to worry now that we got Jadeveon Clowney under contract. We're going to have to think about him and how the Texans are going to handle him in the next 4 years down the road. And because, he has a 5th-year option on his deal. So, like I said, we have 4 years to figure it all out down the road. And I'm sure we will. I have a feeling, and I'm sure we will. Now, the Texans have had a tendency to bring in good players, develop them, and then all of a sudden realize, oh, wait a minute, we don't have the money to sustain them, and then they go somewhere else. DeMeco Ryans, Mario Williams, Owen Daniels, all cap casualties that the Texans have had to let go because, basically, for what I said, cap casualty, because of the cap. So and that's a part, and that's all. It's not the greatest recipe for establishing consistency. Let's put it that way. That's the only thing I would ever say the Texans need to improve on from a back office standpoint. From a front office standpoint. Excuse me, not back office. Front office standpoint. Pardon me. That's all I would say. We need to find a way to establish some consistency and create, a core group of players, so that we can have sort of like a foundation to work with. The one guy that is, I will give the Texans this amount of credit. The one piece of consistency for the Texans for the past 13 years, Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson has been nothing but consistent. Consistently great. His entire career in Houston. Whether the Texans have been winning or losing, he's consistently gone out and just wowed everybody. And I'm sure he'll do it again this year. Especially once that hamstring gets healed. And speaking of Andre Johnson, and this upcoming season, I cannot wait. I have been raving about Bill O'Brien ever since he got hired. I've been raving about Jadeveon Clowney since before the draft, since before draft coverage. I've been keeping my eye on him. I said from the very beginning he deserved to be picked number 1 overall. The closest one was the only guy closest to him, in my opinion, was Khalil Mack. Only guy who I felt was close enough to a Jadeveon Clowney. His athleticism. I mean, if you've seen him in camp when when he's been out there, my goodness. My goodness. And we've been seeing a lot of players, several players out there in camp, just break out. Just showing up everybody. You know, Mike Thomas is a slot receiver. In particular, you know. And we had to let a couple people go. And that's the other thing. And that's the other thing I want to bring up before I continue going on with the Texans' current state. But, you know, throughout all training camp in particular, we've let a couple of draft picks from the 2013 draft go. You know, and not a lot of people, and I should have seen it coming from the very beginning. You know, when I spoke about last season and how it was basically just the signs were there in training camp, the signs were there. The signs were there in the draft. The way the Texans drafted that year. You know, we didn't really satisfy needs per se. While yes, there were some things that were good about Houston last season, and it wasn't much. But and just the way that things progressed in camp, Ed Reed not practicing, Andre Johnson not practicing, Arian Foster not practicing a lot. You know, they've missed some time now, but they were actually, but in OTAs and an early part of training camp, they were doing very well. Arian Foster and Andre last offseason, I don't think they got as much practice time in camp as they got this year. Now, I don't know. If somebody knows, tell me. If somebody knows, refresh my memory, because I'm drawing a blank considering last year's camp. And it's a good thing I have this website now. It's a good thing I have this platform today where I can just where I can really go back and just look at everything that happened. It's another reason why I decided to do this, so I can actually start documenting all of this. But we've let a couple of picks from the 2013 draft go. And I said to myself, the signs were all the way back in the draft. Not in camp, the draft. I should have seen it coming. I should have seen it coming. Texans got complacent, didn't draft very well. I mean, DJ Swearinger and DeAndre Hopkins, two good choices. But aside from that, you know, we've let some guys go from last year's draft. And it's not pretty. It's not pretty. Now, whether the Texans decide to sign them back next season, or later this season, I should say, due to need, is another story altogether. We have yet to see if that's going to be the case. I have no idea. My point is, the signs were there in the draft, considering the Texans' downfall from what was it, 10-6 or 11-5 to 12-4 and then 2-14. And of course, the biggest question mark is the quarterback. And I'll get to them in a bit, considering this season. But for the record, I never thought Matt Schaub was bad. Never once did I ever badmouth about Matt Schaub. Now, did I not like some of the decisions he made at times? Of course I did. Of course I didn't. But I never, never once have I seen. But all the stuff that happened with Matt Schaub, I was just. Now, I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I don't. And I believe the Oakland Raiders at this moment, it's 7:30 Central right now. I think the Oakland Raiders have a preseason game today. Not 100% sure. But and I believe, yeah, I believe they do. I believe they do. So he's out there showing, and as soon as this recording's over, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go watch those games right now, which I'm sure a lot of you are at the moment, which is fine. But quarterback is obviously needed to play better for the Texans to have a chance. And Arian Foster had to stay healthy, which he didn't. And the offensive line needed to protect, which they didn't. Everyone plays a role in the game of football. It is not one person's fault. It's not. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody says. Football is a team sport. You win and lose as a team. Enough said. It is not one guy's responsibility. I don't care who you are. One person is not a football team. Does not make a football team. It is not 1 versus 11. It's not 2 versus 11. It's not even 6. It's not even 6 versus 11. It's 11 on 11. Everyone has a job. They do it consistently. That's what creates winning football. On all 3 phases. Offense, defense, special teams. So anyway, moving on from that tangent, going back to what I said before about this year's expectations. Andre Johnson decided to come back. Arian Foster just to tweak the hamstring. Same with Andre Johnson, tweak the hamstring. Ryan Fitzpatrick has looked nothing but comfortable in this system. Case Keenum is struggling a bit in camp. Tom Savage is showing flashes as well. And, of course, the biggest headline, again, is the backup quarterback job. Who's going to be number 2? Who's going to be number 3? So the point there is, so it's the story of the backup quarterback again. So there are going to be some guys that love Tom Savage. You know, I've already heard some guys calling him Macho Man Tom Macho Man Savage. You know? Oh, yeah. So, but anyway, sorry guys, I'm starting to get messages right off the bat. So if I'm looking down, if I'm looking down, not looking at the camera, that's why. So, but don't worry, I'm still here. The quarterback battle is going to be interesting because the other thing is Ryan Fitzpatrick has had a career of making not the greatest decisions. Now, the argument can be made for the talent around him and the system in place. It's a combination of things. You know, and it comes back to when you play any kind of sports, it's about fundamentals. If your fundamentals are good, you're going to be successful. And I've noticed with Ryan Fitzpatrick, especially when he takes snaps under center, he doesn't have the greatest footwork. But in the gun, his footwork is fantastic. It's so hopefully the system will be attuned to what he can do. And from what I've been hearing, Ryan Fitzpatrick has been the most comfortable. Has had the best grasp of this offense, of Bill O'Brien's offense. And it's complicated. Terminology is complicated. There's a lot of information to grasp with this system. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. And the battle for slot receiver, I've already mentioned guys like Mike Thomas, but Keyshawn Martin, guys like Keyshawn Martin and DeVere Posey, I wouldn't fall asleep on. Same with a couple other guys that are stepping up in camp. DeAndre Hopkins. I've heard nothing but good things about him. I don't think he's dropped a single pass, maybe one or two. I think is from what I've been hearing. But he hasn't. I don't think he's dropped anything. You know, I remember listening to an interview he said, and he mentioned that one of the things he wanted to work on was route running. And who better to teach him than a guy like Andre Johnson, one of the greater route runners in the game. You know, Andre is not very fast, but he makes up with it with his route running. The way he's able to create separation is huge. And you don't have to be the fastest guy out there. I mean, another perfect example is Larry Fitzgerald. He's not a 4-4 guy, but look at the way he runs routes. Look at the way he's technical. Look at the way that Larry Fitzgerald prepares and is technically sound with route running, especially now. If you're going to run routes in the NFL, you've made it. Another perfect example is Wes Welker. He's not the biggest guy, not the most physical guy. But look at the way that Wes Welker runs routes. If you can run routes, it'll make up a lot for your lack of speed. Just saying. Offensive line, Derek Newton. He's been named the starting right tackle, I believe. I gotta look. I don't have the depth chart in front of me. Actually, you know what? I have my website in front of me. Let me pull it up really fast. I can pull it up right now. Derek Newton is the starting right tackle. David Questenberry has been diagnosed with a lymphoma. Nothing but I've ordered my T-shirt. Next time I'm on this show, when I get that shirt in, next time I'm on this show, I'll wear it to support. And of course, the tight ends. Tight ends are a big part of Bill O'Brien's offense. So we'll see how C.J. Fedorovich, Ryan Griffin, and Garrett Graham look. You know, the backup, the running back, the depth, the running back battle. You know, we signed Andre Brown in the offseason. Dennis Johnson's still there. We drafted Alfred Blue. Jonathan Grimes is there. We'll see how well they look in the system, and if we're gonna get more. Defensive line, J.J. Watt. I've already talked much about him. The hole that was left by Antonio Smith's departure. Right now, Jared Crick is in that spot right now. You know, we drafted Jeffrey Pagan from Alabama. He looks good, but I don't think he's a starter. Of course, I don't think he's gonna be seeing a lot of time. Brooks Reed has been moving from inside to outside and back and forth, so we'll see how big of a part his flexibility is right now, especially with Brian Cushing still recovering from his injury. Linebackers. Jadeveon Clowney, number 1 overall pick. Have heard nothing but great things about him when he's healthy. Whitney Merciless is on the verge of having a breakout season. Can't wait to see what he's capable of doing. Jonathan Joseph, if healthy, really good cover corner. Probably second best man-to-man corner in the league, in my opinion. Kareem Jackson has gotten better every single day. AJ Bouye, directly behind him. Heard nothing but good things about him. DJ Swearinger, ballin'. Kendrick Lewis, Chris Clemens, both of them signed in the offseason. Kendrick Lewis was in Kansas City with Romeo Crennel. Chris Clemens was with the Miami Dolphins. Our new Brian Gain, our new director of pro personnel, was the guy that scouted Chris Clemens when he was with the Miami Dolphins. So there's some familiarity there. You know, we got Chris Boswell as a kicker to back up Randy Bullock. We'll see how the kickers look in preseason. We'll see which one has a better preseason. Now I've heard that it's neck and neck right now. We shall see. Overall, a lot to look forward to, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this coaching staff that has a lot of familiarity with itself, with each other. I'm looking to see how well they mesh. Should be really exciting. I cannot wait. And I'll be covering it, and to those that don't know, to those that don't know, I put out a preview, a little sneak peek on this YouTube channel about what breakdown videos are going to look like. So if you haven't seen that, please check that out. It's really fun. I put in a lot of work for that one video. So we're going to be doing a lot more film study this year. Pulled some strings, and I was able to get some access to game tapes. So now, once the game is played, I can go back and rewatch the games and study the games even further. And I'll be able to break down some things right here on this channel for all of you guys to see. And of course, podcast is going to be up live and running very soon. Once the preseason game, it's going to start. It's going to start on Sunday. Podcast episodes start on Sunday. Sunday, August 10th. Podcast episodes start up again. So it'll be basically reviewing the game that was played. Going to be reviewing the game that was played and looking and of course there'll be more episodes ahead where I'll be breaking down what I saw, what I liked, what I didn't like, what to look for in the next game, breaking down matchups, all this cool stuff, all this good stuff from me on this channel, on my podcast, on my website. It's going to be all over the place. It's gonna be a lot of content to come up here soon, but I cannot wait. This is gonna be the first time, and this channel is young. I'm young. I'm still pretty green in all this, but looking ahead to what to all the workload that I have ahead in front of me, it might be a lot for me on my plate, but I'm excited. This is something that I have been looking forward to ever since the Super Bowl. You know, when I broke down the Super Bowl, I basically said the Seahawks would win, and I gave the exact reasons why, and it's on my YouTube channel. All this stuff I've been wanting to do, break down every single game, and just talk about certain topics throughout the week on my podcast, on my website, on this channel, and on my website. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait. There's a lot of fun topics ahead. So anyway, guys, that's just a little preview. That's just a little bit of a preview of what's to come. It's going to be very fun. Oh, one last note about the preseason. That I'm sure that all of you that have been watching preseason games already have noticed. To me, it feels a little weird seeing the PATs kick from the 20-yard line rather than the 2-yard line. There are others that feel the same way. Tell me what you think about that. I think it's weird. Now, I have not seen one missed. Right? I have not seen a PAT miss at the moment. I'm not watching preseason right now. Once this recording is over, I'm gonna turn on my TV and start watching again. But my point is, I haven't seen. It's looked okay, I would say. It just feels weird. It just feels a little weird. If anyone else feels that way or disagrees, tell me. Tell me. I really want to hear what you all hear about this now. With all these new rule changes going on, I'm really curious to see how people's perspective of the NFL is gonna be like. And no matter what, I'm still gonna be covering it. And I'll be on here talking about everything that I see, good or bad. My team, NFL, you name it. Anything NFL related, I'll be here, especially when it pertains to my to the Houston Texans. I'll be here reporting on everything that I see. Now, it's either going to be here on YouTube, my podcast, or my website. So all of that, or on my Twitter, or all that, or on my Twitter. So check those places out. A lot of good stuff on there. It's a lot of good stuff on there right now. A lot more to come. So keep your eyes peeled. So anyway, guys, that's just my little preview. That's just my initial thoughts about the preseason, and and the potential. Now, how many games are we going to win? I don't know. I have not seen the Texans play a game yet. That's tomorrow. That's tomorrow, Saturday. I can't tell. I do not like making regular season wins and loss predictions this early. I can't do it. I simply can't do it. I don't have enough information. Once I do have enough information, I can tell you what to expect. So I just wanted to make sure that that message was clear. Now, is the potential there? Absolutely. What's going to happen? Can't tell you. Can't tell you. I cannot see into the future. Cannot see into the future. So you'll just have to wait and see. So, let's see. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I can possibly share with you guys before ending this. I don't want to make this too long because preseason is on right now. And like you, I want to go downstairs and I want to turn on my television and go watch it myself. So I think that just about wraps things up here on this edition of Bulls on Parade Talk. So thank you all very much for watching this video. Before you go, leave a like if you enjoyed. We always appreciate it. Comment section, tell me about your expectations for this for the Texans preseason. What do you expect to see? What are you going to be looking for? What competition, anything in particular, like position-wise, skill-wise, system-wise, coaching-wise that you're going to look for? What do you want to see? What do you want to see as we're entering a new era of Texans football? Tell me in the comment section. For more videos, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. A shout out to all those that have. I just reached 50 subscribers a couple weeks ago, so I really appreciate it. Hope it continues to grow. Be sure to keep up with the talk by following us here on Twitter at Bulls Parade Talk, liking the Bulls on Parade Talk Facebook page, and of course my website, bullsonparadetalk.blogspot.com. Domain name is still being worked out. On the website, you'll not only see these YouTube videos, but you'll also get access to my podcast on TalkShoe. That's on TalkShoe.com. And you'll also get some additional articles that I write myself about the Texans and football in general. Lots of good stuff on there, and as I mentioned, season's upon us. So once that starts, a lot more to come. A lot more to come, and all those links for all those and links to all that, my Twitter, my website, podcast, all that's in the description below this video. So check it out. A lot of good stuff on there. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, this is your host Joshua Signs from Houston, home of the Texans, saying so long. See you next time right here on the Bulls on Parade Talk.